Mario Cristobal is reestablishing something that was missing from Miami football for way too long. Trust from Miami's alumni base.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's Locked On Canes, we will predict starting jobs, including the offensive line for the Hurricanes, not this coming season, but the season after. There is a significant update on Carson Beck. Not only is he throwing, we have video evidence, folks. But when I talk about reestablishing trust from Miami's alumni, a pretty cool quote. So as we all know by now, Miami just landed the top prospect in America for the class of 2026, Jackson Cantwell, offensive tackle, stud out of Nixa, Missouri. And several former Miami Hurricanes players reached out to him. We're going to talk with Bryant McKinney next week, who was one of those. Vernon Carey reached out to him, and so did Big Vince Wilfork. Now, here's a comment. We'll talk more about this, but why I talk about reestablishing trust. When Jackson Cantwell recapped his conversation with Big Vince, Super Bowl winner, former all-time great Miami Hurricane, Wilfork, quote, "He told me that he used to not tell players to go there because it wasn't very good before," Cantwell said, before Cristobal got there. Once Mario Cristobal got there, he said he feels confident in telling guys to do it because he has the culture back and that there's a fantastic thing going on there. So let's bring on our alumni whisperer, the man we call the truth teller. I know it's not a Tuesday, but it's a truth teller Thursday. And Bruce, you know, you're tight with so many of these former players, Big Vince included, who's been on the show before. Like, right. They're no longer like embarrassed to tell players, hey, Miami's a great spot for you.
Well, they were mostly saying that anyhow, but I understand what Vince meant when he said what he said, because I don't disagree. I think for the last 15, 20 years, I don't think too many of us were that confident in the coaching staff. I mean, staff, not just the head coach, but the staff. You know, so... And I was hearing a lot of comments when Golden was here about D'Onofrio, and a lot of my friends, defensive guys, were saying the same thing. What kind of defense is this? We don't want to play this. In the inner city Miami, those Optimist kids and Luke's kids, when they was playing, you know, when he was coaching the little kids, they didn't play defense like that. They were in your face. They were jamming kids. You know, they were rerouting them, not 10 yards off the ball. So even back then, I remember Dwayne Starks and I were watching when Golden got here. We watched, I think, the first game they ever played. Dwayne and I were saying, and Dwayne was, you know, a Super Bowl winner. How come I don't see the defensive backs in the screen on the television? They were so far back. So it's 10 years later. And now we're finally talking about getting in your face and getting aggressive again. You know, I've talked about this, about Heatherman and the way he's changed this. And now that they have Damian Lewis in there helping Jason on the D-line, I expect things to be different. I know Vince does. And so, yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen. But Mario has created an environment, despite all the naysayers and all the people talking about he's making too much money. What the hell has he done so far? The trajectory is straight up in the air. It's not sideways. You know, the roster's getting loaded. People are coming here. We're in the running for a lot of top talent. Where in years past, we couldn't even remotely get to a 4, let alone a 5-star to come here. We were getting 2- and 3-star guys. Some of them turned out to be great, but yeah, I like where Mario has this team right now. But we got to win. The bottom line is we still have to win.
Yeah, and, you know, Mario, of course, is able to mobilize and engage with the alumni in a unique way because he is one of them, right? He played with a lot of these guys in his era, early 90s, and in the early 2000s, he coached a lot of these guys, including players who were on that 2001 national championship team. But, they also believe in the culture that he's establishing, and you can never fully recreate the old school mentality. College football has changed way too much, and the priorities of the players have changed way too much. But Mario is trying to get as close to that as possible when it comes to fostering a culture of hard work and competition. And Bruce, I truly believe Miami football cannot be at their best unless there's a full buy-in from the former greats. I mean, as close to a full buy-in as possible. There's always going to be some guys out there that are, a little out there and not fully engaged with what's going on, or players that are working somewhere else, like with, Sapp being a coach in Colorado. There's only so much he can do for Miami. I get that. But, for so many years, and I think Rick did an okay job with it for the short time he was at Miami, but I know former players they were not on board with Al Golden. In fact, I think that was when, and I'll give you an example of someone who's come full circle. I can remember a lot of years when, former great offensive lineman Joaquin Gonzalez was very vocally critical of what was going on at Miami. It's come full circle now to the point where his son is enrolling at Miami as a walk-on quarterback, and he believes in what Cristobal, who was on the coaching staff when he played at Miami, is doing. So one of the big advantages, Bruce, that Miami has is the amount of all pros, Pro Bowlers, Pro Football Hall of Famers that Miami produced in such a short period of time, like a 20-plus year span, and having the full buy-in from those players. Like, this is a great advantage. And if Mario Cristobal, who seemingly is mobilizing his guys, and I don't know if Mario told these guys to reach out to Jackson Cantwell, but the fact that Jackson Cantwell is getting calls from Big Vince Wilfork, who, like Cantwell, was an elite shot putter, so he's got that in common with Cantwell as well. He's getting calls from Bryant McKinney, getting calls from Vernon Carey, and God knows how many others. Like, that is a great superpower that Miami needs to utilize in recruiting and everything else.
Yeah, well, we'll have Bryant McKinney on Tuesday, and I'll ask him, because he told me he's going to tell us about what he talked about with Cantwell. He said and I'm sure I'll ask him, hey, how did you make this call? How'd you get the number? Did anybody ask you to do this? And if that's the answer, that's a great answer. The other thing is, look at the difference now in the last 5 years with the facilities, right? The facilities, the money being put into the football program, the indoor practice facility, which we never had, all the weight room and all the other advantages they now have that they didn't have. And then you throw in NIL and money, and there's the collective and so on. So the face of it has changed completely. Back in the day, these guys came here, and we've heard these guys say the same thing. Jimmy said to them, well, if you leave today and you don't commit, don't come back. Well, you can't do that anymore. You can't do that. Can you imagine telling Cantwell that 3 weeks ago when we thought he might? Yeah, you listen, if you're not going to commit, or then he announces, well, I'm going to go to Oregon. Then I'm going to go look at Georgia. Can you imagine us saying, well, then don't come back? You can't do that anymore. So everything is different. But he's created a buzz. The recruiting has been incredible. He doesn't give up. He doesn't quit. He doesn't think, gee, well, the guy said he's going to go to this school, like the Pepe guy who's committed to USC. Do I think he's coming back? Probably not. But he's not going to give up.
But I'll say I'm a lot less worried about Kenai Pepe now that Miami has landed Jackson Cantwell. Like, I can sleep at night if he sticks with his USC commitment, Pepe.
Right. And as far as Russell and Syracuse, I think we're not giving up on him. And maybe he's got some wide receivers to talk to this kid. Same thing with Derek Cooper. I mean, why not just send Editor and James to the school and walk in and say, I'm here. Let me talk to Derek Cooper. I don't know if these things are legal, but hell, do it. And look at the advantage that we have with all these. We can talk about Florida State. They don't have anywhere near the quality of alumni and Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers and all. Not even close. And those are state schools with tons of money.
Yeah. So Miami is unique in that regard. And when we come back, another important nugget on Jackson Cantwell, because a family friend cleared the air on Cantwell's decision. Everybody out there has a narrative. We'll give you the truth when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. These days, the days are getting longer. The weather's warming up. It's so hot now in Florida. and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget, any budget. Get a new patio dining set and some string lights with Wayfair to help extend your outdoor space. The delivery is free and hassle-free, by the way, even for the big stuff. Whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, shop Wayfair to help you unwind. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online. This summer, go outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, I've been worked up the last few days about this Jackson Cantwell narrative from the Georgia fans and the SEC fans, and
we all have.
Yeah, and it's like I don't have a problem with the idea that money played a role in his recruitment, because for any recruit these days, especially 5 stars, obviously NIL money is going to be a factor. So I don't have a problem with that part of it. The issue that I have is this selective narrative when they only bring up Miami, or they only bring up money, I should say, when it's certain schools, including Miami, that if he had gone to Oregon, do you think the narrative would have been, oh, Oregon breaks the bank with a crazy NIL offer? Even if that was true, that would not be the narrative, that it always comes back to Miami. So I think it's unfair to Miami that they always paint it as when Miami wins a player, money, money, money. It's unfair to Miami, and it's also unfair to Jackson Cantwell. Bruce, would you like to hear what a family friend, a longtime sports writer and radio host in the Missouri area had to say about Cantwell's priorities and his decision?
Well, I have to say yes, because it's your show and you're going to play the thing anyway. but to be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. He's coming to Miami. He's not going anywhere else. These other schools can say what they want. Oh, look at how many players we thought we might get in the last 5 or 6 years. We didn't get them.
Yeah.
And you're disappointed, but you move on. Stop it already. What is Georgia complaining about? They're another state school. They have millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they didn't get this one kid who now has dropped from 3 to 10 in the rankings, which you told me before the show. Just shut up already. I'm more concerned now. Let's get the next guy. Let's get Derek Cooper. Let's get Calvin Russell. That's what I want. I want to keep this going, not rest on our so-called laurels from 48 hours ago when Cantwell picked Miami. Let's keep going. So play what you want to play, but I'll comment on it. But I think it's kind of disgusting, because I saw you on your show yesterday talking about the kid made a comment, and he called out one of these guys that's from On3 or whatever. But the kid had his reasons for picking Miami before the numbers started coming out. We thought 3 weeks ago he was coming here because he loved Mario and he loves Mirabal. And now he picks Miami because people throw out $2.5 million. I don't care if it's $250. He picked Miami. Shut the hell up already.
I don't care if it's $10 million. It's not my money.
Yeah, it's
build
not
the best
right.
possible team.
That's correct.
But here, let me read this, because
play it anyway, buddy. Play it. Anyway.
So this is a family friend of the Cantwells. His name is Scott Puryear. He's a radio host and sports writer in Missouri, in Cantwell's area. He says, here's my take. Did he, quote unquote, take the bag from Miami? Of course he did, but the bag was going to be there from all the finalists, especially the 2 on the coasts who have been known to have those resources. I think Oregon is the other one he's talking about. Says, but what they get now is going to be a blip on the radar of what they hope will be even more life-changing money down the road in the NFL for a 6'8", 315-pound, 16-year-old. He hasn't turned 17 yet, who made a 32 on the ACT after his 8th grade year.
33.
He said 32 after 8th grade year is what he said.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we got a 33 recently.
Yeah, and is already outlifting the weights records of some of those programs, and they have posted on their walls on the visits that they take. He says money now wasn't the issue, not when they see a freak of nature with the work ethic to match, who's betting on himself to get to that pro level and make a lot more down the road as a coveted offensive tackle. And that's why they joined the Rosenhaus group to handle all that money talk and do what they do best, get the most for their clients. He says, I too thought surely it was either Georgia or Oregon, even after talking with Jackson briefly at our home last night. I guess he posted this earlier in the week. He and my son were putting the final touches on the video. He visited Georgia all weekend for one more look and met with the Ducks coaches who showed up in Nixa yesterday. But he said again today that he made up his mind on the flight home from Georgia on Sunday night that it was going to be the Canes, largely because of the relationships he had formed with Cristobal and their offensive line coach. There's a lot more to the statement. I'm not going to read all of it, but that's from a family friend of the Cantwells, Bruce. And he's right. Like, listen, Jackson Cantwell is hoping to make a lot more money down the road in the pros. He's not going to make a decision he feels like is sacrificing his long-term future in the interest of making a few extra bucks right now. That's not how he operated.
I agree with that. And that's why, that's why the Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal connection, when you factor that in, because he wants to be coached up, and you factor in getting calls from Bryant and Vince and some of these other guys, they convinced him that this is a family. Yeah. And when he was here, he thought it was a family. And why would he? And let me ask, I'll play lawyer. Had he chosen Oregon, how many people in this country would have said, oh, it had nothing to do with money? Nobody. They all would have said the same damn thing. It has to do with money because of the Nike connection, right?
I don't agree. I think you and I know that, and I think Miami people would say that, but I think the story would have been, hey, look at this amazing team Dan Lanning has built. They're in the college football playoff. I'm telling you, I do think that it would be a lot less about money in the narrative if he had chosen Oregon. I believe that.
Well, okay. So I disagree. I think it might not have been the reason that he did that, but I'm just saying the perception might be, well, he's not going to Georgia and they're great. He's not going to Miami. Look who they have coaching. He's going to Oregon. Lanny's got a good team. What have they won? They haven't won anything either. So, but they're known for having a ton of money. Now, does anybody really, really know how much Georgia had on the table? Somebody had said 1.25 million, which can't be true. Can't be true because they're getting these Georgia discounts. Boy, that's pretty cocky if you ask me.
Yeah, right.
Who do you think you are? so no, I'm being honest.
You're right.
And they probably thought they had this in the bag, but they're missing something.
I thought they had it in the bag
because their people were telling everybody, hey, he's coming here. Look, we heard the same thing about a month or so ago. Oh, Cannon Pickett's going to Clemson. Dabo Sweeney said, I had a great weekend and we're getting all these kids that were here. Well, that's not going to happen. I'm telling you, he's not going to Clemson. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to say where. He's not going to Clemson. He's not going to Florida. You guys figure it out where he's going. Hopefully,
no, he's going to Florida State.
Oh, no. He ain't going to Florida State. He's not going to Florida State. He wants to be here with his brother.
Yeah, exactly. So something else we have on the table this week. Carson Beck is throwing, and Mario Cristobal mentioned he's been throwing for the past 3 weeks. He talked about this at the ACC has their spring meetings going on right now, Amelia Island near Jacksonville. Cristobal told Eric McLean on ACC Network on Carson Beck, he's good to go. He is exceeding every benchmark. And Bruce, Beck even offered us a little teaser. He originally posted this on his Instagram account. Our guy, my pal Canes Muse, shared this. So Beck gave us a little teaser. I would imagine he did more than one throw yesterday, but this is what we got from Carson Beck on his Instagram. Let's watch this together. Hold on, let me make that screen bigger. Here we go. That throw, championship uploading. Sharp?
Yeah. Well, at least we know he can throw that pass. Listen, I remember saying the first time we were talking about him a few months ago, and I said, my concern is his health. If his health is good, I'm not worried. I mean, people have to remember, he's not Cam Ward. I don't think I've seen that many Cam Wards in my lifetime, to tell you the truth. But the kid was a preseason Heisman Trophy candidate, maybe even the leader on some people's boards. So the only concern I have now is him getting on the same page with our new, relatively inexperienced wide receiving group. That's the only thing that I'm not concerned about his health anymore. I mean, I'm concerned if he gets hurt again, but that's the big concern. Where will he be against Notre Dame? Game one, is he going to be on the same page with Daniels? Never played here before. JoJo, who had very little receiving time last year, and he's never thrown to that guy either. Lofton, he's never thrown to him, right? Malachi, he's never thrown to him. So, that's where I'm at. I'm worried about the connection, but I'm not worried about him. I'm just worried about the experience or lack thereof of those guys working together. Because you knew last year, even though Cam was his only year here, he worked the entire offseason and in the spring with all the receivers we had last year. So he had it under his belt when he showed up to play the first game against the Gators last year. So that's and if you're ever going to talk about concerns, I still think that's one of me and you, both of our concerns, is that wide receiver group. We just don't know.
Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure on this date, but I'm, pretty close to that. I think Monday is going to be the first player run practice, PRP as they call it. Kenton Gibbs revealed that they call them PRPs, Donna. First PRP is going to be Monday. So I know on that little video snippet we just played, like Carson Beck was throwing it to some dude, like he wasn't throwing it to CJ Daniels or JoJo Trader, but I believe Monday or someday coming up soon, the first of 16 player run practices is going to begin. So that chemistry you talk about, they're going to be working towards that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we got some questions, Bruce. Now I think I owe somebody an apology. Not you, Bruce. Don't worry. But I think I owe somebody an apology.
I'm not worried.
You're not worried. It's not you. But also,
you always owe me an apology. No, I'm like,
yeah, I do. But we also want to tackle what Miami's starting offensive line is going to look like in 2026 when Jackson Cantwell arrives. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out the portal. We had our guy Brian Smith on with us yesterday. He has been working overtime, and it's not just transfer portal, which, as Mario Cristobal says, never closes. But Brian also covers recruiting, NIL, which is a never-ending topic in college sports right now. So make sure you check out the portal, part of the Locked On Network family, your team every day. All right, so Bruce, we get this question from one of our listeners, the Giant Ninja, who says, why does 24/7 Sports seem to drop a player's ranking every time they commit to Miami? This isn't the first time. Remember Jaden Wayne, who went from a 5-star to a 4-star? There's a lot more as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is something, hold on. Let me take off my Italian stallion hat and put on my tinfoil hat here for a second. So I did say something yesterday on social media. What the hell is that? It's a tinfoil hat. I'm a conspiracy guy, Bruce. It's us against the world, Miami against everybody. So, like, I had an emotional response yesterday, the day after Jackson Cantwell chose Miami, and he dropped, I guess it was 24/7 Sports had him at number 3, and they dropped him down to number 10 overall in the class of 2026. And I got my Twitter fingers warmed up, and I was ranting about it on social media. Now, I don't have to agree with the rankings, and I can still wonder, like, what has the man done to drop 7 spots when he hasn't even played football in like 4 months? But to be fair,
you also said that there's 2 other offensive linemen now ranked ahead of him, which is
Pepe and Ojo.
If not worse.
Pepe and Ojo. But here's the thing: like, I want to go. Like, we can be mad at the rankings all we want. That's fine.
Yeah, who cares?
But I do want to set the record straight, and it's sincerely. I want to apologize to 24/7 Sports for continuing to stoke these flames of conspiracy and accuse them of targeting Miami, because, all right, I didn't know this at the time I drafted my tweet or my X post that the rankings dropped for Cantwell, whether you agree with it or not. That was actually filed several days before he committed to Miami. So even if he had committed to Georgia or Oregon or Ohio State, he still would have dropped from number 3 to number 10. So my implication that they were specifically targeting Miami and dropping this player after he committed to the U, I've been told is factually incorrect. Okay. So I don't necessarily agree with them dropping 7 spots, but the idea that it was some grand conspiracy, I will eat crow on this one and I will apologize.
So you feel better now saying that you got it out of your system?
I do.
Okay. But again, who cares what they think? It doesn't matter. We got them and no one else did. So by the way, we keep talking and talking and talking and talking and this and that. We got to win. That's the bottom line. We have to win. We can't lose to Notre Dame and Florida and maybe or maybe not win the ACC. This has got to stop. We need to run these teams right off the field. And it's got to start with the first game. We have to win because all this talk is great. And I remember when Manny was here, everybody, he always wins the offseason. He gets portal guys. What about during the season? We need to win. This year, we need to win the ACC. No questions. We can't have any excuses unless Beck gets hurt. But we got to win. And so all this talk about the recruits and the NIL and the portal, we just got to win. We have to win. And that's where my head is at. Winning and winning every game and kicking ass. And I'm not allowed to say that, but I said it anyway.
You said it. Well, let me get another question here from John in Tampa. And I'm gonna be in Tampa actually tomorrow. I'm going to the AC/DC concert in Tampa, so I'm pumped up for that. So John says, "Hey, it's a real possibility that we lose all 5 starters on the offensive line after this season." He says at least 3 of them are definitely going on. If we were to lose all 5, what does next year's offensive line look like, and how effective will the new group be? First of all, I don't think we lose all 5 because Matthew McCoy is a junior. I mean, if he has such a great season, he goes to the end. I'll be power to him. I'm not expecting to lose all 5.
It's not happening. So he's staying, and Rodriguez is staying. We have Kinsler's got to step it up.
I think Rodriguez is he's either a senior or like a 5th-year junior. Rodriguez, he's been around.
I think he's got another. Yeah, I think, but he's got red shirts and stuff. So I think he'll be back. Kinsler's got to step up this year. He's got to get playing time this year. I don't know if Okunlola's going to play, but I hope so. He was a 5-star that really shouldn't have deserved the 5 stars based on his competition level. Yeah. Or so it appears.
And listen, it would be a great story. First of all, like a lot of folks are surprised that Okunlola hasn't even transferred out yet, right? But it's also the first part of his career. He's had injury issues, which have kind of affected his ability to develop and get on the field properly. I think it would be a great story if the Pancake Honcho, who's a former 5-star recruit, if he can, what would be, I guess, his 4th year as a 3rd-year junior in 2020. And I'd like to see him play this year. This is his 3rd year coming up.
3rd year, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking 2026 though. If he were to become the left tackle starter with Jackson Cantwell as the right tackle starter, a couple of former 5-star recruits, I think that would be great. Other guys, I think Tommy Kinsler is probably going to be could be a starter by 2026. I think S.J. Alofi-Tuli would be your starting center, and I think Nino Francavilla is going to have an opportunity to possibly be a starting guard in a couple of years' time. So and then there's other players I'd like to see develop. Bruce, Derek Plaz, Juan Minaya, Demetrius Campbell, right. Jaden Wilkerson. The guys who are coming in this year. Some of those. So I mean, I'm not worried about offensive line development. I mean, Miami is about to lose probably around 3 to 4 guys from the O-line before 2026, but they will be restocked and ready.
I'll disagree with you on Sampson playing left tackle and Cantwell playing right. I've seen all the film on Cantwell. He's on the left side. I trust him way more than I trust Sampson Okunlola. I'd rather have him on the right, and I'd rather have Cantwell protecting the quarterback's blind side. So it's just my thought. I mean, I think you might agree because the kid's been playing left tackle for these years. So I'd rather have him.
I'm good either way.
But I don't care as long as your comment was based on both of them starting at the tackle spots. Yeah. That's what you said. Yeah, and I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I totally.
Now, go ahead. We have Bryant McKinney coming on. So the other day I texted him. I think I said this yesterday morning on the show when I came on for a few minutes. He's coming on. He was involved with Cantwell. He's going to tell us what he did. He said he would. And so he'll be here Tuesday to talk about all this. And he's got an event coming up next Thursday night that now I got hoodwinked into being a sponsor, but that's okay. I feel good about it.
It's a good cause, though. It's for mental health. So
mental health, and it's at the Hard Rock, so it's a big deal. So we'll have him on. Oh, and the other thing is, so I want to know if anybody. I had an idea to get 2 or 3 or maybe 4 other former players on the show at the same exact time, so you could have 3 or 4 or 5 boxes, not just one guy, but a few of them. So who do you guys want to see? I know somebody said yesterday they want me to try to get
Rusty Medeiros.
So I reached out to Caesar. He probably has his number. I know Kelvin has the numbers. So I'll reach out. So who do you guys want me to try to get to have a 3 or 4 former player panel on Locked On Canes on a Truth Teller Tuesday? Let us know. Just send in the comments. I'll look at the comments and I'll make calls and I'll see what I can do.
I love
How's
it.
that?
Let us know in the comments below, as the Truth Teller is working overtime, and we love you, my friend. We love you all. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.